Hi, I'm Wade Martell, and this is my buddy Wyatt. We just had a rainstorm, so we thought it'd be a good time to show you how to build a fire under wet conditions. As you can see, everything around here is pretty wet. All this firewood that's on the ground, or would-be firewood, is just a little bit too wet to use, especially to get a fire started. So first thing that we're going to do is get some really dry tinder, and we're going to run off and do that, and you can follow us. Birch bark makes really good tinder to start a fire, and it's off the ground, so it's going to be dry, and it's really high in natural oils, so it takes a spark really well. So we're just going to peel a little bit of this off. We try and just take the loose pieces. We don't want to harm the tree unless we have to, but there's really no need to because it just peels right off. There's a little bit more over here. Now, if you have to, and you have a little drier conditions, you can use dried grass and all sorts of different things for tinder. Old man's beard, there's a little bit of that around, hangs in the trees. So we should have enough right here for this. Besides good dry tinder, the other thing that you're going to need is some really dry kindling. Now, we can find this at the base of trees, usually live trees, but some of the branches die out at the bottom, and they're off the ground and protected by the branches above, so they're generally pretty dry. Now, a good rule of thumb is if it snaps, like a fire snaps, crackles, then it's good use. So we're going to gather up a whole bunch of this. Okay, the first thing that you're going to want to do is you always need to exercise some fire discipline. Now, granted, this ground's kind of wet, and there's not much chance of a forest fire starting, but you always have to remember that you do what you practice. So even when you're practicing building your fires, you want to take anything combustible and get it well out of the way. Just kind of spread it out. Okay, now, the other thing is right now you can see this ground's really, really wet. Okay, and it's kind of hard to build a fire on a wet surface, so you take some of your larger pieces of wood and you just build a little bit of a platform. And you can do this with pretty large pieces, and you can even do it in the snow. It works really great. You can build a fire right on top of the snow if you wanted to. So we're going to keep our tinder off the wet ground. Okay, now we're going to start with our nice dry birch bark. Now, even if this were a little damp, because of the oils in it, it would probably take a spark pretty well. So we're just going to do this. Now, here's where a lot of people really make their first mistake. They get all ready, they build their fire, and then they don't have anything to put on it. Okay, so you want to do a little bit of prep work. You take your pieces of kindling here, you break them up, and what you want is you want some small pieces, and then you want to build out to larger pieces. The really small pieces are the ones that are going to go on first. The other thing that a lot of people mistakenly do is they forget to collect firewood for their fire before they build it. So what happens is they get a nice fire going, they're in a survival situation, and then all of a sudden they're out of firewood. So realistically, what you really want to do is have all of your firewood for your entire day or evening collected and ready to go. So you don't have to run off into the cold woods, wet woods, or whatever to find firewood. After your fire gets going really hot, you can start using some of this wetter stuff that's on the ground, but to get it started, it's next to impossible without good dry kindling and good dry tinder. Now, I could use a lighter to start my fire, which would be fine because a lot of people ask me, why don't you just carry a lighter? If you're going to carry a flint and steel, why don't you just carry a lighter? And the problem is that things happen to lighters. They get wet, they don't work. That's usually when you need your fire the worst. Also, if you carry it in your pocket right here, what happens when you bend down is very often you'll just let the fluid right, or the gas right out of your lighter, then all of a sudden you have a lighter that's pretty much worthless. So I like to carry a flint and steel. So I build most of my fires with my flint. And what we do is you place a rock right by it. Here's what my flint and steel looks like. A good flint and steel is going to have a piece of flint on one side, a piece of magnesium on the other side, and a good piece of carbon steel. An old hacksaw blade or a piece of a hacksaw blade works very well. Now what you're going to do is place your hand on the rock for support, and you're going to want to put a little bit of this magnesium on there. And when you do that, you want to try and get it into a little bit of a pile. It's kind of hard to do sometimes, but it works out. With this birch bark, you usually don't need magnesium, but just thought it'd be a good idea to demonstrate it. Okay, now we're ready to strike the fire. So what we're going to do, again, hold your hand on the rock for support, because holding your hand out here makes it hard to direct your spark. So let's give this a little bit of a shot. Okay, we got our fire going here. We're going to just gradually put some of these small dry pieces of kindling on there. We don't want to smother it. And you can gradually build up to larger pieces. Gradually make it bigger. Take the rock out of the way if you want. And now you're on your way to a nice big fire that you can warm yourself or make something hot to eat. Thank you.